Well, hello. I would say good morning, but it's not. Morning, that is. It's good. It's about 1400. Did get back from a little out trip last night. We weren't staying in a building, and it was really windy, and have a doggo who's deathly afraid of the wind. So it was a very sleepless night. A little bit of the back always um, has problems with the travel, or always does now. Something I'm working on, but it's not nearly as bad as I feared. So things are going okay. The motion seems to be helping. Just a little update on that. I don't want to make this about my health. I was thinking though about a couple of things. Made a couple of videos, and one thing I have noticed from people who I guess consider themselves content creators. It seems to be a term they use to self-identify a lot. I think it's people who aspire to be a content creator as an identity or even a profession. They want to be a star, basically, to use a 20th century vernacular for it, I suppose. Um, and I often hear them talk about parasocial, as in their audience is becoming inappropriately parasocial. The parasocial is a term I think coined around in the 1950s, and so it's not particularly new. And I think it addressed something that. Well, let's start with a definition I found. It's actually from the Cambridge Dictionary. Parasocial, involving or related to a connection that someone feels between themselves and a famous person they do not know, a character in a book, film, TV series, etc., or an artificial intelligence. Has some examples: parasocial relationship. Psychologists have long known that people can engage in parasocial relationships with fictional characters. Uh, Parasocial interaction: people who experience parasocial interactions come to consider media personalities such as movie stars and influencers as friends, despite having no interaction with them. Uh, Parasocial connection toddlers have a tendency to form a parasocial connections with characters they encounter on TV shows, which brings up a couple of interesting things. I think in the 50s, when it was coined, we were looking at really broadcast media, and I think um, it's not unique, but I think it was amplified then. I think before that, yeah, there's broadcast media in the sense of the printed word and so forth, and radio, predates that somewhat. But I think there was an explosion in that, or at least that's when, with the coin, when the coin was. When the term was coined, when the coin was termed, was addressing is, it's the thing about broadcast is it's one to many, uh, but there's also something in the older broadcast media that I think happened where it's one to many, but there's very little feedback loop, some fan mail and things, or restricted feedback loop, fan mail and things of that nature. But a lot of it was filtered. A lot of the communication from the one to many, the downward stream of communication was, you've got large corporations, your radio, your radio corporations and your broadcast corporations dealing with that. And even before, I think, the electronic broadcast, um, we had the books, but it didn't have a whole lot of feedback. I think even more constrained, and even with things like live plays and whatnot, um, maybe not the same because you're facing the audience and the audience is there. Uh, so like throwing vegetables at the Globe Theater and things, and hecklers and which was kind of a boisterous part of that. Actually, was I think the people shouting back at uh, the actors and whatnot. I had a funny thing happen. I used to have a dog that we decided was a Shakespearean thespian because we were at a Shakespeare in the park and we were seeing The Merchant of Venice. And my little dog, who is a Bassador, half Basset, half Lab, was with us in the park. And there's a scene where an actor is skulking along the wall during the ostensible night, but he's skulking, and as he's skulking silently, my dog goes on guard and starts boofs at him, and the crowd erupted because it was perfect for the scene, and the actor played into it. Like, the dog is out there, about to break his cover in the dark of night. And people would come up to Barney the Bassador and pet him afterwards. Uh, so it was kind of a fun thing, but there was a feedback, loop there. And I think it was less in the true like radio broadcast era, whereas one to many. You might be able to call into your local DJ and that kind of thing. Fan mail, national programs maybe less so. And the red carpet, separated the fan from the people. So there, I think we had a parasociality that really formed, in that it was one to many without much feedback. And we have, you may not even know at that time, you might not have even known how many people are watching. You've got the Nielsen ratings, which were an estimate with sample houses that had a box that could monitor which channels people were watching, that kind of thing, or at least they were polled. But in the modern era, there's a lot of metrics, and even what we're being fed is, if you're doing it by feed, if you're doing it by having the data pushed to you, is has your basically kind of personal profile, and is feeding you things. And I think a more important point in a moment, so while I think you're being fed things, it's a much more individual experience in that it's being tailored to you. And then, the content creator these days can see, even sometimes real time, how many viewers there are. And one of the big things, it seems, about the new media forms where people consider them some content creators, is feedback. Direct feedback, sometimes real time in chats, sometimes in comments from the audience. So in a certain way, it's, I think, somewhat less parasocial and more quasi-social, I guess I would say, or at least parasociality has changed. So I find it an interesting thing in that when, content creators complain about their audience becoming parasocial, the content creator themselves is part of that, the construction of that parasocial relationship of a relationship of the creator's output being pushed down, being, the information stream going down towards the audience. So they're actually part of that, and the new part is maybe the feedback stream. But often the content creators they talk about engagement. So they're actually engaging the audience, which is really part and parcel to creating that relationship. So I think they're part and parcel to that relationship, and so the boundary isn't quite as strong as just a straight broadcast down with a one-way street. And and you hear sometimes content creators, smash that like button or leave a comment, and they may be doing that to boost engagement numbers, but they're also promoting that content, or that relationship, and they're providing or acknowledging a feedback path back up. So I think the nature of parasocial, or maybe we should call it quasi-social relationship, has changed in that. Now I find it an interesting trap. I think that what we're just going to call content creators, I think that there's sort of an interesting trap in that you also hear content creators lament about their viewers falling off, or being fickle. My viewers, fickle viewers. I used to be much more popular, and now I'm not. Or they like complimentary comments, but maybe comments that aren't even about the social media persona or character or individual content creator. They're just about the subject. But sometimes if the creator doesn't approve of that message, they'll find out, oh, well, that's parasocial. Sometimes you hear you're being weird, you're being too weird, which is funny because sometimes these social media persona will talk about, well, we don't cater to the normies, we cater to us weirdos, creating kind of a smaller environment, but then making a judgment about things that they don't particularly like. And I think it's the other side. I bring that up because I think it's the other side of that parasocial relationship where the content creator is finding personal validation through having that audience and maybe seeing that audience through numbers or comments or these kinds of things, so that they're actually getting a type of social relationship or quasi-social relationship there, that from their audience, and it's not just I'm producing this content without any knowledge at all of the audience. They're now that there's so many feedback loops that can, or feedback paths that can happen, they are actually involved in a quasi-social relationship because they are deriving value, monetary value, and validation and attention. As how did Love and Rockets put it? My world is your world. People like to hear their names. I am no exception. Please call my name. Oh, call my name. So there's that natural, I think, the tendency to want that attention that derives from older group tribal type things where you are face to face and there's a more direct, equitable feedback system. Doesn't have to be specifically one to one. The one to many's even. You might have a shaman that has maybe there's a tribe of 10 people and they're talking to 10 people, what have you, any of that sort of thing. So I think that the term parasocial, just as a way of sort of denigrating the audience or saying that the audience is acting inappropriately, has some problems with it and may lack a certain awareness of the other side of that relationship and the role of the creator's relationship in that. And I think it's to the detriment of the creator too, because without knowing it, they are relying on a more of a quasi-social relationship of, oh, my fans write in and praise me or give me attention or whatever it may be. So I think parasocial has become a little, distorted in this meaning, obsolete in this meaning. There's a little more going on than I think happens from just the flat idea of parasocial, of an audience members being inappropriate or weird or unwelcome. Unwelcome. I guess it would be an unwelcome feedback, or either an intensity or amount or subject matter, what have you. So I think it's almost more of a quasi-social thing, and I think it might help with content creators suffering burnout or feeling left behind by their audience. I have heard again, my audience is fickle. I used to have this many views and whatnot, and thinking that if the idea is that the comments back are transactional. I make a video and you read it or watch the video and then leave me a comment, and it's purely this small transaction, which is totally appropriate, I suppose. Got to accept the fact that the audience isn't there to love you. That if you're going to go with transaction, the transaction is I provided an entertainment product, and or an information product, infotainment product, and the audience has consumed that, and they aren't beholden to me beyond that. There's no loyalty there if we are looking at it in a transactional manner. So I think keeping that in mind and being clear, and I'm not saying it has to necessarily be one or the other, but keeping it clear that just as you may not be beholden to the audience, one may not be beholden to their audience for extra contact. The audience is also not beholden back to the creator for validation or continued financial support or whatever it may be. So it's just something that was on my mind about that. The other thing is, I hear the term passion a lot. Sometimes I've even heard, I'm passionate about this and I want to follow my bliss. um, which is a little odd to me. And I think it's been one of those words that has drifted over time. Is passion, because passion actually comes from passio. In fact, I'm going to right now look at the etymology dictionary, and my apologies. I'm just talking off the cuff here, so I didn't have it ready. Uh, Not really a prepared thing. I'm just musing. Uh, Passion, my passion. Uh, the sufferings of the Christ on the cross, the death of Christ, we've all heard that as a noun. Um, suffering, let's see, from the late Latin pasonium, the nominative passio, suffering or enduring. From the past participle pati, to endure, undergo, or experience. Uh, the notion is that which must be endured. And that's the thing. Who was it? Oh boy, let me think. Who was that? Who was that? Who was that? That said, oh boy, it was the British politician who also coined it was a dark and stormy night, and the pen is the mightier than the sword, and uh, uh, Bulwer Lytton, I think. Lord Lytton. Yeah, he was that guy. Dark and Stormy Night. A couple other things. I think he did Pursuit of the Almighty Dollar. Was that him? Anyway, uh, but I think the idea of passion. Oh, sorry, I am all over the board there. Anyway, that guy was the guy who said, what did he? How did it was phrased? Talent does what it can. Genius can only do what it must. And I think there's that difference of true genius. In some ways, talent gives you a lot of freedom. Uh, do what you want with it. But true genius in this idea is that um, it's beholden to do its function. That's all it can do. It's very narrow, and it's the idea of a calling more than an avocation. It's or more even than a vocation or an advocate. It's a calling, and it's uh, just what you must do, and you have to endure, and you have to endure the suffering. That's the idea of passionate love. Is love is you've heard the love is suffering, love is pain, all these things, and that's really what the core concept of passion is. Um, it's that it's so central to me. I don't really have a choice, and it's going to be misery, and I'm going to endure through it just because I am called to do it. Um, which is, I think, in opposition to the meaning I see a lot where passion, they mean intense interest or that which brings me joy kind of feeling. I'm passionate about art. I'm passionate about music. I'm passionate about whatever. And usually it's those sort of things where people find self-fulfillment, and then find enjoyable, and they see other things that could be done as drudgery, and they want to follow their bliss. They want to find blissful existence through their passion, which I think is sort of a contradiction in terms. Um, which is why I drew my little drawing on the screen there with MS Paint with a trackball. I probably will have to not use a trackball. But just because we have, that's just the chaos of a passion. I don't know that chaos is actually quite the uh, true thing, because I don't know if it's that disorganization, but the tumult, the tumultuous nature. That there's you're in a fire of your passions. It's a bonfire that burns your soul. So it's just an interesting way, because I think it's easy for us to um, assign ourselves uh, the idea of passion, that we are so passionate about something, but not. It's an easy baggage to pick up. It's an easy one to do because it sounds very heroic. Uh, that the idea of going through the fire, uh, to pursue that, but at the same time we want peace and bliss. Uh, what was it? Just actually pulling a ballroom. Remember Sweet Ballroom Blitz? I think they talk about uh, that. Let's see. Oh, I see a man. I see a man at the back. As a matter of fact, his eyes are as red as the sun, and a girl in the corner that no one ignore because she thinks she's the passionate one. Uh, oh yeah, it was like lightning. Everybody was frightening, and the music was soothing, and they all started grooving. And the man in the back said, "Everyone attack!" And it turned into a ballroom blitz. And the girl in the corner said, "Boy, I want to warn you," and it'll turn into a ballroom blitz. Um, Again, it's that idea. It's like passion is uh, extreme, fanatic. So I think just it's a those are just two terms. I'll leave you with that thought. Those are just two terms that were on my mind today, and it struck me that I think clarity in those thoughts, can avoid maybe some unnecessary complications and pain and things. It lets you really, I think, use of the words and understanding the roots of those um, can inform one. They can. I think they can inform us. It's not just expressing, but it gives some structure to the thoughts and. And even while we may mean I'm just intensely interested and I enjoy this and I find joy in it, when we say passionate, it's like, oh, it comes in that deal. Other humans who have made this word, who have lived the human condition before me, have a word to express some things about that I may want to consider. So anyway, thanks for taking the time to listen. Uh, Maybe I'll learn to draw. Maybe I'll even use a mouse. Maybe I'll even use a stylus. Or maybe I'll use something besides MS Paint and spend more than 3 minutes on a drawing. But I do appreciate the time.